Diaries of a Madman. Written by What Must I Do? Chapter 4. Nightmare Night, Part 2. And so I was revealed in all my horrifying glory to the fillies and colts of Ponyville. Who dares disturb death itself? I growled under the mask, leaning into the foals that were staring back up. When I gripped the scythe with both my hands, the group of them screamed and bolted. My dark evil laugh followed them in the night. God, I love Halloween. I said to no one, putting the scythe back in a one-handed grip and stepping out of the library, closing the door behind me. When I was turning back to confront the night, I saw the next group of trick-or-treating foals coming to the library. I couldn't help but lock eyes with the one in the front, a small white colt with an eye patch. None of the rest actually really noticed me at that point, so I pulled my hood back up, revealing a skeletal appearance. The little colt up front immediately froze, his eyes locking into the hollow eye sockets of my mask. Thou dare approachest death? I darkly intoned, stepping closer and grabbing the scythe with both hands yet again. That got the attention of everyone in the group, and they all turned to me. When they realized just what it was they were standing before, their mouths dropped. I advanced another step, and each one of them bolted, leaving just their chaperone behind.
That scythe looks familiar,
Granny Smith said, eyeing it. Shouldn't you be in bed? I asked, dropping the dark voice, or maybe a grave, either or.
Should have been there 5 hours ago,
She angrily answered. Or 5 years.
Darn fools and their newfangled games. Why, back in my day, hey, where are you going?
Any old person that starts talking about things back in their day should have stopped talking long since. As soon as she whipped that phrase out, I just turned around and started walking off. Anyway, I walked on towards the main party area. Now, I knew I couldn't get away with scaring fools all night. Oh, sure, it would be really fun, but I'd eventually get in trouble. Besides, my reputation in town was still rather fluid, and scaring all the fools could ruin what I worked so impassively to build. So I couldn't just scare all the fools all night, but I could at the very least play games or whatever. Maybe just being seen participating in a way that wasn't hurting anyone, especially since I had a fucking scythe on my hand, though I don't know if scythes here have the same dark history to them that those on Earth do. With the purpose of cooperation in mind, I lifted the cowl on the cloak and so my mask couldn't be seen. I did it just in time, too. Right when I got it to cover me, I entered the large area that was set aside for games and the like. A few of the ponies had looked up to see me entering the area, but not too many. Most of those that did look up didn't bother keeping me in sight for long. But a few of them just stared, presumably either trying to figure out what I was dressing up as or unsure if I was going to be safe. I didn't pay them much mind, instead walking to where Luna was throwing some manner of stuffed spiders at a web. For someone that had never played any kind of fair games, she seemed to be doing well. Twilight was standing a little ways back from her, watching the princess with a smile. So? I asked, quietly sliding in next to her. She jumped when I spoke, since I moved so softly that she didn't even hear me.
No, it's just you. Things are going well. I completely forgot that you were going to dress up. What are you, anyway?
Death?
What? How can you be a concept?
It's the human thing. I'll explain later. It's a good thing I chose to hold off the explanation, since Luna turned around a few seconds later, beaming. Her smile took a hit when she saw the cloaked and cowled figure in front of her with a weapon, but it recovered quickly enough when I spoke. I see things are going well, Princess. Having fun?
Indeed, it is a new experience, one that has been sorely lacking over the long years.
I can imagine, I replied. You know, it's a lot better when you're competing against someone, trying to outdo them.
Oh?
She said, a small hint of daring tone starting to pop up.
Wouldst thou care to compete against me, Navarone?
Hey now, don't look at me. I meant Twilight here. I used a bit of my scythe to press against Twilight's flank, trying to get her to move. The purple mare just looked at me in confusion.
I don't know anything about those games. I never played them either.
Well, there you go, I said, smiling under the mask. It's a lot more fair to have two inexperienced people competing.
What's the matter?
Twilight said, turning to me.
You afraid to lose, Nav?
More than I'm apathetic, I answered with a shrug. That was the wrong answer. A blue aura surrounded one of the spiders and it floated to me.
Your princess commands you to play.
Luna said, taking a haughty stance. All right, I said, taking the stuffed spider in the hand. I walked up to one of the throwing area, let the scythe lean on my shoulder, and tossed the spider up twice to judge its weight, and then tossed it about a few inches to the right of the bull's eye, closer than any of Luna's little spiders. It's been a little while. Since there were another 2 spiders in front of me, I threw the 2 of them as well. The first one was overcorrected and landed a few inches to the left. The last one fell a bit too much, ending up at dead center, but low. When I turned back, Luna's eyes were slightly narrowed and Twilight seemed at least halfway impressed.
I didn't know you could throw like that,
Twilight said. Not too dissimilar to knife throwing, I replied. I had an uncle that was really into that, showed me all about it.
Luck,
Luna declared before looking down at Twilight.
What other games may we participate in? Oh, there are all kinds of things set up, Princess. But first I want you to meet my friend Applejack, who has an apple bombing game set up, so that's one you could do. Lead the way, then.
Twilight started walking off and Luna began to follow. I shrugged and went to join them, but the mayor running the spider game stopped me.
Sir?
She quietly said. I turned back to her and she seemed to blanch for a moment before continuing.
Do you want your prize?
Want something?
Of course. Well, it's not much, but those were some of the better tosses I've seen all night. Good enough to win one of my prizes, that's for sure.
She reached down into the bag next to her front hooves and somehow pulled a beanie baby-sized blue bear.
Here you are.
Thanks. I'm not actually used to getting anything when I play things like that. Have a good night. I gotta catch up.
You too, sir.
She called as I started quickly walking away, wondering what the fuck I was going to do with a beanie baby. It didn't take me but a few seconds to catch up with Luna and Twilight, though I wasn't entirely certain that Luna wanted me around at that point. After all, she had just lost for the first time, it seemed, even if it was just a silly carnival game. But I followed anyway, since the only other thing I had to do was scare kids. When we got to Applejack, she only had 2 foals that were trying to get apples from her. One of them was a colt from the group I scared earlier. He actually fell into the bucket of water when we approached, but that was more because he was clumsy than because he saw me. I jumped forward, grabbing him round one of his kicking back legs and pulled him out, holding him up to look the colt eye-to-eye socket. Death has come for thee, foal, I whispered, leaning in closer. He started screaming and flying about until I carefully dropped him on the ground. Then he galloped away as quickly as his small legs could carry him. The other foals he was with fled as soon as he saw me.
That was me, Nav,
Twilight admonished. Yeah, but it was funny, I replied, stepping away from the bucket. And besides, if they're too busy being scared to death, they won't be fair in the night. I added with a nod to Luna.
Your assistance is noted,
Luna dryly said, stepping closer.
But I'd prefer you not scaring off my customers.
Applejack somewhat angrily added.
It's hard enough to get a pony over here in the first place.
What's a better game, then? I'll try, but with a face like mine, it's hard not scaring people, I said as I pulled my hood back, revealing my pale visage for all to see. Applejack and Twilight gasped, since neither of them knew I grabbed the skull or cleaned it up. Luna, however, didn't seem all that shocked.
I didn't know any of those were still alive. I suppose I have to send the royal hunters into the Everfree to recreate my menagerie, but that is a task for later.
He turned to the bucket of apples and peered into it.
How does one play this game?
It's real simple, Princess,
Applejack merrily said. Happy to have a princess as a customer.
You just stick your head on there and try to grab an apple using only your teeth.
Simple.
Twilight and I shared a smile behind her back as Luna's horn lit up and her crown lifted from her head.
Navarone, I dub thee temporary tiara holder.
Before I could answer, she thrust the thing into my hands and then shoved her head into the bucket. I wonder how long she can hold her breath, I idly said, putting the little bear inside a tiara so that when she took it back, she'd have a guest.
What do you think her hair will look like wet?
Applejack asked, tilting her head at Luna's bent-over form. I bet it'll be funny, I said with a smile.
Either way, you shouldn't laugh,
Twilight hastily said.
You really shouldn't act so poorly in front of a princess, Navarone.
Man, royal blood don't mean shit to me. If she gets offended by that, oh well. Twilight snorted was probably about to comment when Luna's head ripped out of the bucket.
Insolent apples, come into our mouth.
Once again, I hopped forward, laying a hand to her side. She flinched at the contact and then glared at me. There's a technique to it, I said. Get one against the wall, and then do it, or go for the stem. Most of these games are fairly easy once you understand how they work.
If it's so easy, you do it.
She commanded, pulling the tiara back from my hands. I rolled my eyes and pulled the skull off my head, setting it in the scythe down next to them. Then, out of the way, I stuck my head near the water, nuzzled one of the apples to the side, and then very easily bit into it, using the wall to hold it in place. I could practically hear Luna's teeth grinding behind me as I pulled my head and apple, both dripping out of the bucket. What do I win? I asked Applejack when I pulled the apple out of my mouth.
1 apple.
She answered with a grin. Oh, you cheap bitch. Ugh, I haven't had any fruit other than fucking apples in months. Twilight, Luna, either of you hungry? I asked, turning back to face them. Luna seemed to be over her initial anger and was studying the stuffed bear I left in her crown.
From where did this come from?
She asked, tilting her head.
I think that mare with the spiders was using them as prizes,
Twilight said. One of Luna's eyes twitched and the bear shot toward me, slamming into my chest.
We do not accept pity, Navarone.
All three of us just stared at her in almost complete shock. Pity? I asked. What are you talking about?
You are giving me this prize because I could not win it myself. Do not pity your princess. I think it was a gift,
Twilight slowly said. Yeah. Jesus, this bitch is crazy.
Gift?
Luna asked, the fire in her eyes dying down to more of a simmer.
What is the purpose of a gift?
I let Twilight field that question as I grabbed the mask and scythe again.
A gift is when a pony gives another object they believe the other might desire. It's a sign of friendship, not pity.
As she was saying all this, I was putting the mask and cowl back on. No reason to walk around possibly scaring anyone, after all. But my hands were starting to get very full, with the scythe, bear, and apple to hold.
And this bear was a gift for me?
Luna asked when Twilight finished, looking back to me.
Sure.
After all, I don't want to carry around. I don't have no need for stuffed animals.
Then, thank you,
She said, a small tinge of red appearing on her cheeks. I imagined she was slightly surprised for some reason. Thankfully, Applejack did something useful with breaking up what might have been an awkward moment.
So, you want to try your luck again, princess?
She asked.
I shall. Navarone shan't undo me in everything this night.
She stepped back up to the water, once again shoving her crown into my hands. I set the bear back into the tiara and backed away from the bucket, letting her do her thing. For a second, there, I thought she was about to kill me. I said to Twilight.
I wasn't worried so much about that,
She answered with a hint of relief.
but she definitely seemed rather upset for a moment. Is she really so unused to receiving gifts?
Obviously. Speaking of which, you want this apple? I'm not hungry and I can't eat it through this mask anyway.
Sure, I haven't had dinner yet.
She took the apple with the magic and went to town on it, devouring the thing before Luna finally pulled an apple from the watery depths.
Huzzah!
She shouted, dropping the apple and catching it with the magic.
'Twas the most fun, Farmer Applejack. What is our prize?
1 apple.
Applejack responded with a smile.
Oh. Well, I was hungry anyway. Come, Twilight, Navarone. There is much fun to be had.
Her horn lit up slightly brighter to pull the crown from me and setting it back on her rather wet head.
Well,
Twilight said.
I think there was a pumpkin catapult somewhere over there.
She rubbed her hoof to her left, where several more booths were set up.
That should be pretty interesting. Then lead the way.
As Twilight started walking, Luna began eating her hard-won apple. I started to follow, but Applejack grabbed my robe somehow.
Be careful with her.
She whispered, eyeing Luna.
I know she doesn't want to hurt no pony, but she had a fire in her eyes when she threw that bear at you.
Trust me, I have no intention of pissing her off. I just answered quietly. I'll definitely take care. Applejack let me go, and once again, I caught up with Luna and Twilight, both of whom seemed to be having fun.
Mayhaps I should have come to Ponyville sooner.
Luna mused aloud as we walked.
The citizens here seem rather accepting, and this fun is most enjoyable experience.
No shit, Sherlock,
You're welcome back at any time.
Twilight said.
But things probably won't be as fun without a festival going on. Then perhaps a year-long festival is in order.
Luna replied. That would get boring quickly, I said. The point of festivals is to take a break from normal life. If they became normal life, it would just be some routine rather than something special.
There is wisdom in your words.
She reluctantly admitted.
'Tis a shame, but an understandable one. And we're here.
Twilight said, waving over the small cannibals that were set up.
What is the purpose of this game?
Luna answered, a smile already forming as she walked up to one of the weapons. The mirror working the game said,
You launch a pumpkin at the target, Princess. The goal is to hit the center. Once again, simple,
the Moon Princess declared. Grabbing one of the pumpkins next to the catapult, she appropriated without any prompting, and she pulled the arm down and shot the pumpkin perfectly towards the target, splattering the pumpkin in a juicy mess.
Let me see thee best that, Navarone,
she said, shooting a smile my way. You're disturbingly good at shooting catapults, I replied, stepping up to the firing line.
I have much experience with them,
she said, lifting her off to blow on it nonchalantly.
But I believe those are stories my sister does not like telling others about.
Nah, whatever. You aren't the only one with experience. High school physics. At a few clubs. Took me a look longer to aim my catapult, but my shot was just as true and sure. It doesn't hurt that the target and ammo are both so big.
High school?
She asked, not really caring that I did as well as she.
Is that a school for those that live among mountains?
Not quite. I once again took the scythe in my hand, moving away from the firing catapults. Hey, are there any prizes for this one? The mayor shook her head.
You get to blow up a pumpkin. What more could you want?
You raise a very good point. So what next, Twilight?
Princess, have you ever done a strength test? Nay, we have not. We tended to test myself differently. Against who would I test myself? You'll see, Twilight said. Come on, let's go find it.
As we started walking off again, Luna asked,
So what is high school, Navarone?
Well, public education in my land is broken into 3 basic tiers. Elementary, which is basic, middle school, which is more advanced, and high school, which is the highest tier of the still relatively basic. Hold on. I saw a familiar colt trying to sneak past my line of sight. As soon as I realized he was trying to avoid me, I knew what I had to do. So I began slowly walking towards him, lifting my scythe. Luckily for me, some mare giving out candy caught his attention, getting him to turn his back on me, which, as it turned out, was a big mistake for the poor kid. I snatched him up by his neck, whispering, Death stalks thee, night colt. He squealed as soon as I touched him, but went deathly silent when I started whispering, Run, as fast as thy legs will take thee, and you might yet escape. By the time I dropped him, I honestly didn't think his legs would even hold him. Seemed like the little kid was a fighter, though, as he immediately turned to check if it was me. Upon determining that it was, the eye of his not covered by a pirate patch went extremely wide, and he just made a squeaky noise before booking it. With the colt now even more traumatized, I went back to where Luna and Twilight were waiting, the latter with a look of extreme disapproval.
Navarone, what did I just tell you 5 minutes ago?
She demanded. I don't know, something about watermelons?
Leave the poor fools alone. You aren't supposed to be scaring them.
But it's so much fun! Luna snorted.
I fail to see what is so scary about his costume.
One who's immortal holds a little fear of death, I said by way of an answer. Of course you wouldn't be scared, but to those of us who have to worry about rotting in a hole, it's a slightly more pressing concern.
How can you be dressed as death? She asked.
It's a human thing. Twilight, lead the way.
You better not scare any more fools, Nav.
I'll think about it. As we continued walking, Luna asked me more about the personification of death, and I explained it as best as I could, which honestly wasn't that well. Not paying much attention to history or folklore makes stuff like that difficult to talk about, after all. There wasn't any kind of line at the tall strength machine thing. Step right up, the stallion in charge said. Care to test your strength, ladies?
We would like to give it a try,
Luna said, stepping forward.
How do I play this game?
Easy as pie, princess, the fellow answered. Just step right up and use your hind legs to buck this plate right here, he said, tapping the target plate. The little tab here will rise according to how strong you are.
All of these fun games are so simple,
she joyously said, moving to the line and casually bucking the plate with a large smile on her face. That smile disappeared at the sound of something shattering behind her. The plate she kicked was cracked in half, broken down the center, and the tab that was supposed to write of the bell shot up so quickly that it tore the bell off and continued past into the air. I could barely see it still rising and watched as it slowly started to fall. It smashed right into Rainbow Dash, who was about to slam her hose down into a cloud to create lightning. She tumbled off down the low-hanging cloud, hitting the dirt with a solid thud. Twilight got off to make sure she was okay. "Damn," I said, both my eyebrows lifting. You'd think all that time of the mood would atrophy her muscles. "Well, you definitely got me beating that department, Princess." There we go. Another fantastic chapter of Diaries of a Madman, and I hope you guys have enjoyed. However, before anything else, I'd like to thank my wonderful Patreons. Thank you, my Tier 1 Patreons, Squall, Windfeather, Starlight Blaze, Dreamless Portal, and Rain Flicker. My Tier 2 Patreons, Chase Lemaster, Sword Brother and Mordred, Nocturne, Solus, RD Bryant, Captain Blue Shadow, Danish Dash, HKH4 aka Texture, and The Animated Ghost. And of course a large thank you to Silent Titan. I appreciate your guys' support so much and it means a ton to me. That aside, however, this has been Firehearth. Have a wonderful day.